Well, we're back working on track plans again, and today we're looking at laying out curves on your model railroad and kinky track work, which is to say when you lay out your track work inappropriately and you build it inappropriately and you end up putting kinks in the track, which is a significant cause of derailments and problems. It seems that laying out just a nice, simple curve like this should be very easily done. It's pretty easy to do when you're designing the railroad, especially if you're using software. But translating your design onto the actual railroad and getting these curves a nice uniform radius and not ending up with some kind of kink, especially at the entrance or exit to the curve, can be a real challenge. If you're using some sort of modular track like Atlas Snap Track or Cato Unitrack or Bachmann Easy Track, it can make this simpler to avoid a kink because everything's sort of modular, but that's assuming that you've laid it out in such a way that it aligns with the module that you're using. Here in the illustration, you can see that the incoming and outgoing tracks from the curve are at exactly 90 degrees from each other, and if you've designed your railroad in such a way that everything neatly aligns with the modules that you're using, then of course this is going to just snap together and everything's going to be perfect. But typically we want our railroads to be much more organic than having everything laid out at exact 90-degree sections, and so now it becomes much more challenging to find the exact right bit of track that's going to work with the layout plan that we're working with. So unfortunately, it can be real easy to end up with a kinky situation like this, where there's a kink in the track somewhere, and that's something we really need to avoid because a lot of our track grief is caused. This is exaggerated in the picture, but even the smallest amount of a kink in the track can create no end of operational grief. And if your incoming and outgoing tracks are not exactly lined up with the module that you're using, in this case a little bit off from 90 degrees, that difference has got to be made up somewhere, and it's going to be made up in the form of a kink. So if you're working with these modular systems, it's really important to design your track around those modules. A lot of the people who make these modular systems have commercially available track plans for that reason that will show you exactly what module to use and when. But if you're sort of freelancing the whole thing, it can be a challenge. And so what a lot of people would choose to do if you really want an organic freelance track design that isn't relying on a preset module is to use either a flexible track or a hand-laid track. In this case, you can lay your curves out and your tangents out in any way that you want to because you're going to fit the track to the track plan in a very organic and flexible way. When working in the smaller scales, particularly like N scale, one of the simple systems here is to buy a set of templates. They make curvature templates where you can just lay the template directly on your plywood base and draw a curve from the template. It's almost like working with the sectional tracks, except that it's much more organic because you can draw the curve to whatever length you need the curve to be. However, working in the larger scales, especially F scale like we're working with, those templates would be the size of an automobile, and it just isn't practical. So what we have to do is lay our curves out in a different way. And so the illustration here shows how we're going to lay out this curve for flexible track or hand-laid track. And what we need to do is establish a consistent radius through the entire curve. Here again, you can get somewhat organic with this, but boy does that run into a problem if you're just sort of freelancing the curve. You're very likely to end up with places in the curve that are much broader and other places where it's much sharper, effectively just sort of a broad version of a kink, where you've actually brought your radius all the way down to 10 inches or something, and it's going to cause an operational problem. So it works so much better if you lay the entire curve out as a continuous radius. So there's several different ways of proceeding here. The system that I like is to use a rigid compass arm here. Some people might use something like a string, but it's really easy to make a mistake if you're doing that. The key is to find the center of the radius here. In the illustration, we're doing a completely 90-degree curve. Typically, you won't be doing that. But somewhere inside of that radius, no matter what the angle is coming in and the angle is going out, there is a point at which we have found the center of that radius, and that can be determined by pulling back a distance from the incoming and outgoing tracks, and then say, okay, in order to get from point A to point B, I'm going to need a radius of this amount. And then what I like to do is drill a hole in the material that I'm going to use as my roadbed at the center of the radius here, and then drill a hole in a piece of like 1x2, and run a screw down through the 1x2 into the center of the radius in such a way that it can swivel easily, and then drill another hole in my 1x2 at the track position, and then extend a pencil, a Sharpie, some kind of writing instrument through that hole, and then swing my radius. And since it's a nice rigid piece of wood, I get a nice uniform consistent radius curve all the way from the incoming part of the curve to the outgoing part of the curve. So if you're laying this out on a piece of plywood that you're going to cut out to use as roadbed, there's your arc right there, and there's the roadbed that you're going to be elevating, putting over something like L-gird or benchwork or whatever. But quite often what you're doing is simply laying this out to lay directly onto a piece of plywood that's going to be the roadbed for the railroad itself. You're simply looking to draw a line on here that you're going to lay track on top of. This is the case on our garden railroad, where almost everything is just laid directly on top of plywood covered with roofing material on the outside part of the railroad. And so it's quite simple to just pull this radius around on that plywood, mark out the area, and then lay the track directly on top of the line, being very careful to follow the line being the center of the track. More often than not, you're not laying the track directly on top of the plywood, but rather laying it on top of something like a cork roadbed. But you still have your center line marked out here on the plywood, and you can shape your cork roadbed right around that center line, and now you've got two pieces of cork roadbed that have a center line implicit there, and now you can lay your track directly on top of that. Just being very careful to follow that line very exactly so you don't end up with changing radiuses as you're going through the curve, which can pose a real operational problem. Now, another significant problem that you can run into, this is the case on almost every curve that we have on our railroad because of the sort of narrow shelf-like nature of it, is that the center of the curve here falls somewhere off of the benchwork, off of the railroad itself. And so how can we swing our arc from the center here when the center here is 2 feet away from the benchwork, even 4 feet away from the benchwork? What are we going to do? Now, I'll confess I've tried some fairly Mickey Mouse solutions here that haven't worked out. Where a lot of our railroad is outside, I've driven a long pole into the ground right here and tried to use that as the center of the radius. That qualifies as a disaster. For both the indoor and outdoor parts of the railroad, the only system that I have found that actually works is to take another piece of like 1x2 and screw that to the benchwork over here on the benchwork where the track is. Extend that out to where I know the center of the radius to be, making sure that it's screwed down adequately so it can't flex in and out, and I've got a good center point here for my curve. And then take a second piece of 1x2 here, and just as before, mount a pencil in the end of it and swing my radius and mark out where the track needs to be laid. Because of the complexity of this, it gets really tempting to just kind of eyeball it and say, well, I'll just kind of bend a radius here that sort of works. And in really, really short little sections, that may work out, but typically on a broader curve, a longer curve like this, you're much better off to properly lay the curve out. Okay, let's add a whole new level of complexity here. Back in the earlier days of railroading, this is pretty much the way they laid curves out. And so if you're modeling an older railroad, especially like a narrow gauge railroad, this is typical, this is prototypical and completely adequate. But on modern railroads, they use something called easements. And what is meant by that is that where the tangent track here is entering the curve, transitioning directly from tangent to curve almost represents something of a kink. And so what they will do is gradually ease into the curve, hence the name easement, and then ease back out of the curve into the tangent track. And so if you're doing a Class A modern railroad, you might want to duplicate this effect. It may also improve your operations just as it does on a modern Class A railroad. So if you're a real whiz-bang with geometry, you might be able to figure this whole thing out as you're laying it out on the railroad. A lot of software will allow you to do it with the software, which is exactly what you see here. I've added adjustment points to the curve shape so that I can create an easement. Transferring this over to your railroad might be a bit tricky. So what I did back when I was modeling Class A railroad is I simply laid most of the curve out at a continuous radius and then pulled back my tangent tracks a bit from that so that at the very end of the curve I could lay in a little bit of track that gradually eased into the tangent, just sort of eyeballing that in. And where typically eyeballing doesn't work very well, I think for creating easements it works just fine. In fact, if you're using flex or when you're putting rail down, you can even just sort of bend the rail before you put down your ties and let the rail itself find the easement, or let the flex track itself find the easement, because it will tend to do that. It doesn't want to simply kink into the radius. It wants to ease into the radius. So just use that as a guide as you're laying out your track and create easements that way. Now I'd like to address the problem created by these offset curves, a left and a right curve connecting to each other. These just look so neat. I love finding them on prototype railroads, especially like narrow gauge railroads, because I can position my camera someplace outside of the curve here, always staying back 30 feet from the track, of course, in such a way that I can see the train coming into the first curve, crossing across, and ultimately crossing in front of my camera. So I see it traveling in two different directions. I can even set it up in such a way that I see both sides of the train as it goes through the curve from different positions. They're just great looking places, and of course you therefore want to add those to your model railroad. However, if you don't lay this out correctly, boy does it create an operational headache. Right here where the two curves meet, you need to have a short piece of tangent track. If you simply connect it the way I've done it here in the drawing, as the cars go through the curves, the car on one curve is swinging the front end of the car off to the right. The car exiting the curve over here is swinging the back end of the car off to the left, and the knuckle coupler somewhere in the middle is either going to break or it's just going to pull the train completely off the track, which is typically what's going to happen. On a real railroad, it might just break the coupler, but this will create no end of grief operationally, and you'll try to figure out why some of your cars derail here and some of them don't, and just what's going on. It depends entirely on how much overhang there is between the bolster where the truck, the wheel truck is mounted, and the coupler pocket itself. If that's a long distance, boy, does that swing out and swing back in. The other car is moving in completely the opposite direction, and so it's just going to grab one of those two cars and pull it right off the track. So what we need is this. We need to have a small tangent section between our two curves, a straight section right here that preferably is as long as our longest car, so that as trains are going through this curve, even our longest car will be completely tangent at the curve. Therefore, the coupler will be centered as it's entering and leaving the curve, and therefore it won't be pulling the car that it's coupled to off the track. This is an incredibly common problem that you see on a lot of railroads because it takes up space. It's difficult to lay the railroad out with these tangent sections between the curves. But even on the earliest narrow gauge railroads, if you go out and look at the old grades, they may have really sharp curves with just continuous radiuses and no easements in and out of those curves. But there will always be a short tangent track between the two curves if they're curves facing in opposite directions this way. Well, next Tuesday we're going to be following up with a whole different kind of curve, a vertical curve, which is another significant operational problem. And I hope you're going to want to see that too. So if you're not a subscriber to the channel, please subscribe. Also, if you like this, please hit the like button. And the easy peasy way to become a subscriber is by clicking on the upcoming blue button. Zoink! Right there, the blue button. And we're not sure how you found this video on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring. And Karen and I will see you here on Sunday with some more Christmassy stuff. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.